Let's begin with a truth we've all felt. Sometimes, life doesn't fall apart. It falls into divine alignment. You may think the chaos you're experiencing is random, cruel, or simply bad luck. But what if, just what if, what you're calling a breakdown is the very signal of a breakthrough? Because when God is about to shift your life, something very specific begins to happen. The old self begins to die, and it feels like pain, confusion, restlessness, loss. But don't mistake that discomfort for destruction, it's creation in progress. Let me tell you why. Your brain, your body, and even your electromagnetic field are wired to familiarity. You've memorized your personality, your habits, your thoughts, your reactions, so well that you wake up and recreate the same past day after day. But when the divine, when God, wants to shift your destiny, that frequency is no longer valid. Suddenly your comfort zone begins to collapse, relationships fall away, jobs no longer satisfy, your nervous system feels unsteady. You're tempted to go back, but there's nothing back there for you. Why? Because the new you, the future you, is trying to be born, and every birthing process comes with labor pains. Here's the science behind it. When your inner world starts to change, when your thoughts begin to align with purpose instead of survival, your brain rewires itself. Your body stops reacting to your old emotional addictions, fear, doubt, control, and starts moving toward possibility. You start attracting people and circumstances not from who you were, but from who you're becoming. But make no mistake, before you rise, you'll be stripped of your identity, stripped of certainty. You'll wonder, why is this happening to me? It's not happening to you, it's happening for you. It's a divine recalibration. Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt like your life was being dismantled? But deep down, somewhere unshakable inside, you knew it wasn't the end. That's God shifting you. That's your consciousness being asked to stop living by what you see and start living by what you believe. That's when the shift begins. You'll start getting visions, dreams, nudges, whispers from your higher self, guiding you to the unknown. And here's the paradox. The moment you surrender control and trust the unseen, the moment you no longer need proof to believe, you begin to collapse the wave of infinite potential into form. What you once chased begins chasing you. So when everything familiar starts to fall apart, don't panic, get excited. Because that's the space where divine design starts to rewire your destiny. You're not being punished, you're being positioned. You're not being broken, you're being rebuilt. You're not losing your life, you're shedding your limits. So stay awake, stay surrendered, stay open. Because when God is about to shift your life, it will feel like your world is ending. But in truth, your real life is finally about to begin. Disruption is the first sign of divine alignment. It often enters quietly, then all at once, through a conversation that unsettles you, an unexpected loss, a moment of deep discomfort that seems out of proportion to the event itself. It's easy to misinterpret disruption as failure, rejection, or something going wrong. But in truth, it's often the earliest indication that a greater intelligence is intervening. The patterns you've lived in, the thoughts, behaviors, environments, even identities, begin to feel unstable. What used to make sense no longer resonates. What once felt safe now feels suffocating. This isn't a coincidence. It's coherence unraveling to make space for a new alignment. When your current reality no longer matches the blueprint of your potential, the system, your nervous system, your relationships, your circumstances, begins to vibrate out of sync. That's the friction you feel. And in that friction, the old structure starts to weaken. You may feel frustrated, disoriented, even panicked. But this is not chaos without cause. It is the intelligence of the divine pressing up against your limitations, creating pressure where you've settled into the familiar. That pressure is not against you. It's the first nudge forward. Most people try to resist it. They try to fix the old instead of allowing the new. But divine alignment doesn't work by tweaking the past, it works by dissolving what's out of sync with the higher frequency of your future. So disruption comes not as punishment but as a sign. Your current state can no longer carry the magnitude of who you're becoming, and the disruption will escalate until you listen. until you pause long enough to feel, to observe, and to ask, not why is this happening to me, but what is this trying to realign within me? The old self must die for the new self to emerge. This isn't a metaphor. It's a neurological, emotional, and energetic truth. Every belief you've held, every habit you've practiced, every story you've told yourself has shaped a personality that's rooted in the past, and that personality has created your personal reality. So when you're on the edge of transformation, the old self doesn't go quietly. It fights for survival. It clings to routine, to identity, to the familiar emotions that have defined your inner world for years, maybe decades. Fear, guilt, unworthiness. These are not just feelings, they are anchors to who you were. True change requires a letting go at the deepest level. It means choosing thoughts that feel foreign, emotions that feel unfamiliar, and actions that defy the predictability of your old life. It's uncomfortable because you are biologically wired to prefer the known, even if the known is limiting. The old self is like a well-worn script. It doesn't want you to improvise. It wants you to repeat. But your future cannot be created with the architecture of the past. When you begin to intentionally dismantle the old identity, by observing your thoughts instead of reacting to them, by feeling your triggers instead of acting on them, you're not just making different choices. You're disassembling neurological circuits. You're chemically changing your body. You're telling your environment, I am no longer available for the version of me that only knows survival. And that process is a death. A sacred one. It can feel like loss, like emptiness, like disconnection. But in that void, the space is created for the new self to be born, not from memory, but from possibility, from vision, from alignment with a version of you that has always been waiting beyond the threshold of the known. Breakdowns are often breakthroughs in disguise. They come unannounced, disorienting, and raw. They shake the foundation of everything that once felt certain. Relationships end, opportunities collapse. Your plans unravel. On the surface, it looks like loss. Internally, it feels like failure. But what you're experiencing isn't destruction for its own sake. It's a collapse of the false structures that could no longer support the weight of your becoming. The breakdown is not random, it is intelligent. It is precise. It strips away the illusions and attachments that tethered you to a limited version of yourself. What most people call falling apart is often the nervous system releasing years of unprocessed emotion, trauma, and conditioning. Your body, in its wisdom, can no longer hold the contradiction between who you are and who you're meant to be. So it forces a release, and while it may feel like chaos, what's actually happening is reordering. The familiar dies off to make room for coherence with a higher timeline. The very things you think are going wrong are the exact catalysts needed to pull you out of inertia. Pain becomes the teacher. Confusion becomes the reset. Breakthroughs are not always flashes of insight or moments of euphoric clarity. Often, they begin in the dark through surrender, through stillness, through sitting with emotions that once would have triggered escape. When you reach the point where the old way can no longer continue, that is sacred ground. It's the threshold. Your biology, your energy, and your soul are being recalibrated. The mind doesn't understand it, so it panics. But the soul recognizes the frequency, and in the midst of what looks like collapse, a deeper truth is rising, one that can't emerge without first dismantling what no longer serves the next evolution of your life. God shifts you by stripping what no longer serves you. This is not punishment, it's precision. The divine doesn't operate in chaos, it operates in correction. And when your life begins to shake, when pieces start to fall away that once felt essential, people, titles, roles, routines, it's because those pieces no longer fit the architecture of who you are becoming. The stripping is uncomfortable, even painful, because it confronts the ego's attachment to control, to identity, to stability. But this process is necessary. The soul cannot carry weight it was never meant to hold. There are times when your prayers are not answered by addition, but by subtraction. You ask for clarity, and confusion increases. You ask for growth, and relationships dissolve. You ask for purpose, and everything that gave you temporary meaning is removed. It feels backward, but this is divine engineering. It clears the space for what is true, enduring, and aligned. The things that fall away are not being taken from you. They are being peeled off because they are not rooted in who you truly are. They may have served you once, but now they limit you. This kind of stripping touches every layer: mental, emotional, spiritual. Old narratives rise to the surface so they can be dismantled. Habits and coping mechanisms stop working. You may feel exposed, vulnerable, like a structure without walls. That's because the scaffolding of false security is being pulled down, and in its place something more stable, something more authentic, is being prepared. But it can't be built on top of what is false. So first there must be removal. There must be the sacred undoing. Only then can your life be realigned with the frequency of your highest path, where what remains is only what resonates with your truth. You're not losing control, you're losing limitation. What feels like chaos is often a recalibration, not a crisis. When you begin to evolve, the parts of your life that were built on fear, on survival, on needing to manage every outcome, start to dissolve. Control is a mechanism of the ego, designed to keep you safe inside the boundaries of the known. It's predictable, calculated, and often rooted in the past. But when the divine begins to shift your trajectory, control becomes a prison, and so it begins to crack. You may feel untethered, like you're floating without an anchor. The structures you leaned on no longer hold. The strategies you used to keep life orderly no longer work. This isn't failure, it's freedom beginning to emerge. What's really being lost is the illusion that you ever had control over anything except your inner world. The need to control is replaced by the invitation to trust, and trust opens the door to alignment. Limitation lives in the mind. It says you must know before you act, you must see the entire path before you begin. But transformation doesn't unfold like that. It requires movement into the unknown. It requires surrender. When you stop gripping, you allow energy to flow. You let go of the belief that outcomes must be manipulated, and instead, you begin to co-create with something greater. This shift can feel like groundlessness, but it's really spaciousness. The boundaries that once kept you small are being removed. You're stepping beyond the edges of what's familiar, not to fall, but to expand. And in that expansion, you begin to meet parts of yourself that were hidden behind control: creativity, intuition, freedom, power. You didn't lose control. You released what kept you from discovering what you're truly capable of becoming. Inner transformation always precedes outer manifestation. Lasting change never begins with the external, it starts within, at the level of thought, emotion, belief, and energy. Before a new chapter shows up in your reality, it must be created in your consciousness. This is why forcing outcomes or chasing results often leads to exhaustion. Without inner alignment, action becomes struggle. But when the internal shift occurs, when your emotional and energetic state begins to match the frequency of what you desire, your outer world starts to reorganize effortlessly to reflect it. You are constantly broadcasting signals into the quantum field through your emotional state. If your inner world is filled with fear, doubt, or lack, those frequencies shape your perception and decisions. No matter how hard you work, if your subconscious is rooted in limitation, your life will mirror that. True transformation begins when you make the decision to live as though your future has already occurred. Not from fantasy, but from a new state of being. When your thoughts are elevated, your emotions coherent, and your energy aligned with your vision, you activate a different level of reality. This doesn't happen overnight. It requires awareness and repetition. You become the architect of change by choosing different thoughts, practicing new emotional responses, and stepping into unfamiliar behaviors. At first, it may feel unnatural. That's expected because you're becoming someone new. As the inner shift stabilizes, the outer begins to respond. People, opportunities, and synchronicities arrive not by chance, but by resonance. Your life begins to reflect the truth of who you are, not who you were. The physical world reorganizes in response to the vibrational blueprint you consistently hold. This is the deeper intelligence at work, transformation from the inside out, where manifestation is not forced but received. When you surrender the known, the divine reveals the unknown. The known is comfortable, familiar, and often repetitive. It feels safe because it is predictable, even if it limits your growth. You know how to operate within it. You know the emotions, the routines, the reactions, but the known is also where stagnation lies. It's where patterns recycle and dreams shrink to fit circumstances. To move beyond it requires surrender, not of your power, but of your attachment to certainty. And that surrender is where transformation begins. Letting go of the known is an act of trust. Trust that something greater is guiding your path, even when you can't see the next step. Trust that the life you're truly meant to live won't be found in repetition, but in revelation. When you step into the unknown, you leave behind your past identity, your conditioned responses, and your fixed expectations. This is the space where miracles are possible, not because you chase them, but because you make space for them. The unknown is not empty. It's rich with potential. It's the realm where your soul leads and your mind follows. The divine operates in the unknown. It is not bound by your past experiences or your logical timeline. It waits for you beyond the limits of control. And when you finally release the need to plan every outcome or understand every moment, you make room for divine timing, guidance, and intervention. This space requires patience, presence, and faith. The mind may feel disoriented here because it thrives on answers, but the soul thrives on openness, and it's in that openness where direction arises, not from force, but from resonance, not from planning, but from alignment. What is revealed in the unknown could never be found by clinging to what has already been. Your energy attracts your future, not your history. Every thought you think, every emotion you feel, every intention you hold is broadcasting a frequency into the field around you. That field responds not to your words, but to your energetic signature. You are not drawing experiences into your life based on what you want, but based on what you are. When your internal state matches the vibration of your past, rooted in fear, regret, or limitation, you unconsciously recreate those same experiences, even if you say you want something different. Desire alone doesn't shift your life. Energy does. If you say you want abundance but constantly feel lack, the signal you're sending is not aligned with your vision. If you say you're ready for love but vibrate in distrust or unworthiness, the field reflects that incoherence. You're not punished for these states. You're simply met by a mirror. The quantum field is impersonal. It organizes itself in response to coherence, to clarity, to the dominant emotional tone you emit. Your future is shaped by the emotions you rehearse and the identity you choose to embody each day. When you begin to tune your energy to the frequency of your future, through elevated emotions like gratitude, joy, certainty, and worthiness, you begin to collapse the distance between where you are and where you're meant to be. You become magnetic not by effort but by alignment. The people, opportunities, and breakthroughs you once chased begin to show up with ease because you're no longer living from the past, you're broadcasting from the future. And the universe doesn't respond to time, it responds to energy. So when you stop rehearsing your history and start embodying your potential, the field has no choice but to reorganize in your favor and meet you where you truly are. Pain is the nervous system recalibrating to a higher frequency. When you begin to shift beyond old patterns and limiting beliefs, your body doesn't immediately understand the change. It's been conditioned for survival, wired to respond to familiar emotional states that may have kept you safe but also kept you stuck. As you move toward transformation, the nervous system experiences this as stress or discomfort because it's being asked to operate outside of its usual parameters. This creates tension, anxiety, or even physical symptoms. But this pain is not a signal that you are failing. It is evidence that your system is adjusting to a new way of being, The nervous system is like an orchestra tuning before a concert. At first, the sounds are discordant, jarring, and uncomfortable. But as the tuning continues, harmony emerges. Your body is releasing old emotional charges, neural pathways are being rewired, and energy is being redistributed. This process can be disorienting because it asks you to feel without immediately knowing why. It challenges your need for control and certainty. Yet, the nervous system is evolving to support a higher frequency of consciousness, one that is more expansive, more resilient, and more connected to your true self. The discomfort you experience during transformation is actually a sign of growth. It means you are moving beyond the survival brain into the creative brain. You're shifting from reacting to life to co-creating it. The pain signals the nervous system's neuroplasticity in action as it builds new circuits to sustain your new identity and your new reality. When you learn to sit with this discomfort without resistance, without judgment, you accelerate the recalibration. You become an active participant in your own evolution, allowing the nervous system to catch up to the vision your mind and soul are holding. The shift isn't punishment, it's preparation. When your life feels like it's unraveling, it's easy to interpret the experience as a form of suffering meant to break you down, but this perspective misses a deeper truth. The challenges, losses, and disruptions are not designed to punish you. They are designed to prepare you for what's next. Just as an athlete trains through discomfort to build strength, your soul moves through trials to build capacity. These moments of upheaval are necessary steps in your growth, preparing you to receive and sustain a higher level of consciousness and possibility. Preparation requires stripping away what no longer serves your highest good, which can feel like loss, but is actually liberation. It's like clearing the soil before planting new seeds. The shift dismantles old identities, old beliefs, and outdated patterns that keep you small. This dismantling creates the fertile ground needed for new life to emerge. Without this process, you cannot fully embody your potential or align with your true purpose. The divine knows this and orchestrates the shift with precision, even if it feels chaotic from your current perspective. During preparation, you may feel vulnerable and uncertain because you're being invited to surrender control and trust the process. This trust is not blind. It's rooted in the recognition that transformation requires passage through the unknown. Your spirit is being molded like clay, shaped by experiences that challenge your limits and expand your awareness. Preparation is both an internal and external process, aligning your thoughts, emotions, and actions with the future you are meant to create. It's the sacred space where resistance falls away and receptivity rises. In this phase, patience becomes essential. Growth can't be rushed, and the deeper the shift, the more time it often requires. But every challenge, every moment of discomfort, is an integral part of the preparation that ensures when the shift is complete. You are ready to step fully into the new reality with strength, clarity, and grace.